Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Health Begins with Mom podcast. This is Dorit Palvanov, your host. Today on the show, it's again me, Cello, and I'm going to be answering a question I received from one of my listeners and also one of the members of my Facebook group, Busy Moms Get Healthy. And so today I want to, first of all, read the question and answer it, and maybe hopefully give her and also you some of my perspective on childcare and returning back to work, and just also in general, trusting our children with other people. So I'm going to read the question and then I'll get into my response. So she says like this: Hi Dorit, I'm about to start a new career or job, and I'm starting to realize that I will need to find either a daycare/nanny for my daughter. With my past and the media, my trust in people with my child is non-existent. Any advice on how, where, and what to look for when looking for the right person or care facility? As moms, how can we calm our anxieties and feeling confident with our decisions? So this is such a good question. I honestly never even thought of creating an episode about trusting our children with other people, but it's such a great question, and it is a very important decision that we have to make, especially if we have to get back to work, because children, yes, they are ours, but I think for the sake of your mental health and also their mental health, it is unhealthy to constantly being the only person who is caring and providing for them. So before I get into my response, I just want to remind you that this is going to be biased because, yes, this is my opinion. This is what I believe to be true, and this is what I do with my own kids. So please, whatever I'm going to share, I wanted to know that this is my opinion, and obviously you will have your own opinion, and other people you ask will approach this differently as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, so the way I approach this is two things. Number one, this is, here on the podcast, it's called Health Begins with Mom because I believe that the health of our family begins with us, with women. First and foremost, taking care of ourselves. And then when we sort of master, I don't really know how you can master this, but just for the sake of argument, when you master self-care and really prioritize yourself over everybody else, right? So I talk about this choosing me before we. When you do that, then that energy emanates towards everybody in the house, whether it's your children, your house, your husband, your house, and even the people who you call into your home, right? So because it's energy, and energy is really something that radiates outwards. So just something to think about. So the way I approach it is first and foremost to look within. Look within and understand what is my take on trust, right? Because you mentioning in your question, you talk about the fact that your trust with people, with your child is non-existent. And I understand, yes, there's a lot in the media right now. There is, because we have such an exposure to, the internet and it's, unfortunately the way news work is most of it is going to be negative because that's what people buy, right? And this is actually one of the reasons when my husband and I, when we got married, we decided not to own TV. We also have a very strict policy with regards to any materials that we buy. I do not buy any gossip magazines, nothing like that, because I'm very strategic with regards to what I feed myself and also what I expose my kids to. So yes. So trust is an interesting question, right? So why do I not trust? Is it because there is a real threat? Like, do you live in a dangerous neighborhood? Do you know that, something happened in the neighborhood you live in? Or is it because, of what you read and you're exposed to, and you just don't believe that anybody can do, as good as you do? Now, this is something that I want to make very clear. It's actually truth. No one will ever care for your kids the way you do. Not even your parents, not your mom, not your sister, not even the closest people to you. And this is just a reality. And I want you to just sit with it and understand, take it in and understand that this is just a reality of things. No one needs your kids the way you do, right? It's just a reality. They are your kids for a reason. So I don't think also that it is beneficial to our children to constantly only see us. In my own personal life, I've realized that when I started my motherhood journey, it was 8 years ago, when I just had my first child, I was so overwhelmed. I was so scared, but scared not because I didn't know how to handle this. I knew how, because I've raised my little sister. I have a younger sister who is 17 years old now, but I had a lot of experience with regards to raising a baby and taking care of a baby, but I knew nothing about taking care of me. The way the women in my life, and I've podcasted about this before, the women that I've seen in my life, they've basically completely sacrificed themselves in the name of children, in the name of the home. And what I'm trying to create in my home is no, especially because I'm raising girls and daughters, I want them to see that I have boundaries around this, that I do allow myself the time off, and I do allow other people to help me. And so this is extremely important, and I do this consciously right now. I ask for help a lot, because number one, it feeds me. It allows me time to be more creative and to create and give more to my work, to my clients, to just my purpose, so that I have more space and energy to tend for my purpose and my calling, but also so that my kids have the opportunity to see how other people live and how other people deal with challenges, right? I can share a story that happened a few weeks ago. I think I've podcasted about this, that we've been all sick for 3 weeks. I was home with one of them, mostly with the baby. And after 3 weeks of being home with all of them, I was so burnt out. I was so tired. I was so exhausted. I felt like I just needed to take a vacation just for myself, just to do nothing, after they all went back to their regular programming. And I think it's so important to allow other people in. And this happened actually for me, not really, I didn't really plan this to happen, but my mother-in-law offered to take the kids. And when she did, before she came, my oldest daughter and I got into this crazy, stupid argument. And she was so stubborn and I was so stubborn. And then my mother-in-law came in and she immediately took my daughter away from me. And she shared with her, she was just sort of like teaching her how to be empathetic towards me, right? And so she just said to her, sweetie, you have to understand your mom has been home with, with a sick child for 3 weeks. She's just very tired. She's just exhausted. Please understand her. And when she was saying that, first of all, to me, it felt so like it's like this huge energetic kind of stone removed out of my system. But also I've looked in my daughter's eyes and I have seen how she changed. Her energy completely shifted as a result of that. And this is something that I would never be able to tell her. Even if I did, she would accept this, with resentment, and sort of like she would reject it because it's coming from me, right? So the mother-daughter relationship is important, but at the end of the day, for them to have a healthy sense of self, they slowly over time will have to individuate and sort of like graduate away from you, right? So every day, this is going to happen, and this is healthy, right? If we hold on to them and constantly keep them close to us, we are actually harming ourselves, and we are also hindering their growth and development. So to me, this was such an eye-opener when this happened, and it made me realize that it is actually very healthy for my kids to allow them to be in a, of course, it has to be a safe place of people who we ourselves trust. And actually, right now, I'm at this stage of my life that I'm actively creating a tribe of women, of mothers, of sisters, of people who I trust, who I can trust my children with, right? So listen, at the end of the day, not everybody is going to be aligned with the way, with what I believe, because I can tell you, people who I surround myself with, not all of them are organic or believe in health and, holistic and all that stuff. I do believe in that, but let's be realistic. Not everybody believe in those things, and everybody have their own values in life, and that's okay. And I want my kids to know that, this is our bubble, but outside, people choose to live differently. And I want you to see this, and I want you to know how to respond to that. This is the way I see it. So the question of trust is it's broad, and it's something to really look to something to explore within yourself. What I recommend you to do is to get in your journal and just journal about this. You can start with, just write the word trust. You can write it in capital letters, and then just start spilling onto the page. I don't trust other people because, and then just write. Just kind of, it's called release writing. Just dump everything you have onto the page. And the process of release writing, it's also very cathartic because there's a lot of healing in it, because you will see once you see the words on the page, you will realize that a lot of it is the pigment of your own imagination. A lot of it's really not even happening. It's sort of like, what you've seen or what you've heard or what you've read. In the way the mind works, it sort of like amplifies it. So I'm not saying that, you should trust everybody, but definitely, being able to trust a designated group of people who at least declare themselves as being sort of, certified and trained to tend for children. I think there should be a good level of trust there. This is number one. Number two is looking into separation issues. So maybe just another maybe journaling exercise that you could do is ask yourself why do you feel so challenged to separate from your child? Are you afraid of your child having a hard time separating from you, or is it actually backwards? Is it or maybe it's you who is afraid or anxious about separating from your child? Because I can tell you many times we think, we're sort of like thinking about, we're projecting that onto our children. And from my own experience, and I have three of them, every time that my children started a new daycare program, I was surprised at how easy they would separate from me. It was really actually harder for me than it was for them. So this is another thing that you have to think and to sort of look at, and maybe go back to the way you were raised, or how, ask your mom if you don't remember, how you accepted being separated from your mom. How did you react when you started a new program or camp, or stuff like that? It's just a question, because a lot of the times parenting or different events, sort of life events that happen in our life, they trigger a lot of our own childhood. And this is something that I talk a lot about, the women that I work with privately, is that in order to safely transition into adulthood and step into the woman who you were destined to be, you really have to heal from your childhood wounds first. And so this is one of those things, right? Looking into things like trust. Why am I not unable to trust people? And why is it hard for me to separate? And then the third thing would be to look into your relationship with your own mom, right? So this is another thing that I look into in my private work with women, is something that is called healing the mother wound. The mother wound is any pain that was inflicted on you, whether physical pain, emotional pain, perceived pain, any kind of pain that is related to your mom. And so, how is your relationship with your mom? What advice does she give you? Do you agree with a lot of with a lot of things that she says, or you rebel? This relationship that we have with our mom is primal in the way that we then go and form a relationship with our own child, especially if you have a daughter. And I know from what you've written is that you are raising a daughter. So this is something to look at as well. And then, look within. It is work. It is, work that requires a lot of dedication. It also requires space, energetic space to just sit down and be alone, focused in your journal, so that you're giving yourself the permission to dig deeper, right? This work requires courage as well. And it also requires a lot of vulnerability and honesty, especially with yourself. So this is something that I would start with. And then the second part would be, when you are looking for the right person or the right facility to care for your child, I would look into, first and foremost, the beliefs that you have around raising your child. So for example, for me, all my three kids started daycare at 12 months at one, because this is what I wanted. And I wanted that for my sanity, for my mental health, because I needed, and I stayed home with all three of them for 1 year. And I needed, just time for myself. And it was clear, and I discussed this with my husband, and he was on board with that. And I also believe that it's also better for kids to be exposed to other kids and social circles, and to other women and to other caregivers, so that the more of that they have, the better it will be for them to form social skills. And it is a skill, right, that we need to practice. So the more you allow your child to practice that skill, the better and the healthier they will be, in my opinion, at least. So the first thing that I would look at, when looking for a facility to care for my child, a daycare facility or something like that, is, are you religious? Do you want your child's care to be in alignment with your religious beliefs? Because if yes, then it's sort of like a you will be able to cut off all the daycare centers that are not in alignment with that, right? So for example, for us, we are Orthodox Jews, and we believe that our children, obviously we want them to be in that kind of environment. And so from the start, I was looking at daycare centers that are aligned with our religious beliefs. So this is one thing. And then, another thing is, what's your take on the menu? Like, what do you think in terms of, because they will be eating outside of the home. And if you are like me, someone who wants them to feed them with, nourishing food, healthy food, good quality food. So this is another thing to look at. Do you want the menu to be organic? Do you want it to be whole foods, right? If this is important, then you have to be willing to pay a lot more for this kind of childcare, because there are extra costs involved. So another thing to think about. Also, how do you feel with regards to learning in general, right? Do you believe that children learn through play and a lot of unstructured time? Or do you believe in, the academic approach, which is, of course it's broad, but the way I see it is, a lot of these centers would encourage children to start reading, the younger the better kind of thing. I personally do not agree with that approach, because I believe that eventually children, eventually we all learn to read, right? It's all really a matter of time. And so I don't believe that it's healthy and actually even necessary to push our kids to be somewhere or get somewhere or achieve something that they're not ready for, right? I believe in a lot of unstructured play. I believe in a lot of, just having free time to do whatever it is that they want to do. Of course, they need you to facilitate play, because a lot of, many times children get into this kind of like, they at least for my kids, I know that they can lay on the couch and just sit there all day long. So maternal facilitation is a concept that basically helps the children. It's sort of like you facilitate the play, but you don't play for them. You just sort of like just start it, right? Or you make it easier for them. So this could be things like laying out the coloring papers, or preparing the crayons for them, or creating like a designated space for play. These are some examples of maternal facilitation. And so, so this is a question, because a lot of there are many different centers and many different approaches, right? So which childcare approach do you resonate with? There are many, many different approaches. I know of the three biggest one, which is Montessori, Waldorf, and Reggio Emilia. Oh, and there are also the fourth one, which is parents co-ops. So it's another question, right? To ask yourself, which childcare approach do you resonate with? So I can tell you a little bit about Montessori. Montessori teaches, the teachers of Montessori system, they must have an early childhood undergraduate or graduate degree, and also Montessori certification. And, if that is important, then this is available. And the Montessori approach emphasizes nature, creativity, and hands-on learning with gentle guidance provided by the teachers. And the goal of the Montessori method is to develop a child's senses, character, practical life skills, and academic ability. And I think the biggest thing about Montessori, at least this is how I see it, is teaching them life skills. So I've seen kids who go through the Montessori approach, kids as young as 3, 4 being able to serve themselves with water, with food. They're able to wash their own hands, to open the fridge, take food that they want. So if you want to teach and encourage your child to be independent, then I think Montessori approach is amazing for that. I did not put my kids into a Montessori program, for a few different reasons, but the biggest of them was that I could not find something that will be aligned with our religious views. But so for you, this is something that you could look into. Another approach is the Waldorf, and Waldorf preschools strive to nurture a child's spirit. So they are very, very spiritual. They talk about the soul and the body and the focus on the child's interest. This is very, very big. They would be very mindful about what the child naturally gravitates towards too. So if they see that the child is very creative and loves drawing, they would sort of help to emphasize that more. If they see that the child is enjoying math and working with numbers, then they would help to facilitate more of that and encourage them to work more and sort of like to grow more of that. But at the same time, I know from Waldorf system, they also help you to strengthen the areas where you're not as strong at. So, I personally, if that was up to me, I would definitely choose the Waldorf system. Again, I could not find one that is aligned with our religious views, but if that is not a problem for you, then at least for me, that is the best system. The system involves creative, hands-on group learning with a focus on rhythmic repetition in a supportive environment. And this approach also strives to generate a strong inner enthusiasm for learning and develop child's innate abilities and talents, right? So instruction is usually teacher directed, and every teacher must be Waldorf certified. So something that I have done is, before even my I think it was when my first daughter was 6 months old, I just I found all these schools in Google, like on Google Maps, the ones that were in close vicinity, which is another thing, by the way, looking at places. And if it even is important to you, for me, it was important to look for a center that would be close to home, right? Because I didn't want to drive far to drop them off and then pick them up. I knew that it's going to be a chaos for me, so I looked into places that would be close by, and then I just scheduled like a tour at every single daycare center. And I wanted to get the sense of the space, of the energy. Cleanliness was also important for me, and just also to interact with the teachers and sort of understand where they're coming from and why they decided to teach there, why they're so passionate about childcare and caring for children. So it is okay to ask these questions, right? Because for me, for example, number one thing is to find a place where I know that the people really love my child. That's all that matters to me. I don't care about academics. I don't care about that kind of. I don't even care about the program. I just want my child to be in a place where I know that they're loved, and I know and I believe and I trust. I trust that my children will eventually develop in all the other areas, and the result is that my kids, they do pretty well at school. So thank goodness I wasn't Too wrong there. So Montessori, Waldorf, and then there is the Reggio Emilia, which is another childcare approach, and that system encourages exploration and focuses on the importance of community and self-expression. So this is actually the system that they use in my older kids' school. So they use that in the JK and SK program. And so, yeah, it's also a great approach. I don't see anything wrong with it. The way the classroom is designed is that they have small wooden tables and chairs, and they come together as a community, as a class, before recess, after recess, and they just sort of ask questions. The teacher also facilitates discussions. And I think what the teacher is teaching them is they teach them through art and through projects and activities that to be able to work in a team and to collaborate on projects, which is another great thing. So yeah, these three I think are the most popular in terms of childcare approach. And then there is the parent co-ops, which I personally I'm not very familiar with, but I've done some research. And what it says online, that parent co-ops is a system that, if you want to be directly involved with your child's school experience, then a lot of parents do co-ops, and parents are actively involved with their little one's education on a daily basis, and they work closely with the classroom teachers. And co-ops aren't obviously for everyone because of the responsibilities and also the time commitment. So it's another thing, right? Another thing to look into. Maybe for you that asked the question, if you are really anxious about handing your child over to someone else's care, maybe a co-op would be a good opportunity, because this way you will be very involved. So yeah, as you see, there are a lot of things that are involved. I think first and foremost is an open communication with you, between you and your partner. If you have a partner, to sort of sit down and first decide what are your religious beliefs, what do you think about the menu, what do you want your daughter to eat. And please don't be shy to ask. Like I remember when I was doing my research, I would actually ask the teachers, the supervisors, or whoever was greeting me into the tour. I asked them to show me the kitchen, if that would be okay to see the kitchen and what they serve. And so, a lot of them were open. A lot of them were skeptical and said no. And that is that is a red light for me, right? If they're not open and transparent, then it's sort of like, it's a red light. Another thing that I wanted to share with you is to also ask for a copy of the menu. Many of them have a rotating menu, so you want to ask for a copy of both, and then take it home and go through it and see. Many of them, especially if it's a large daycare center, they will have pretty well and balanced meals, right? So they will work with a dietitian or a nutritionist to come up with a balanced meal plan for the kids. But many of will offer things like Fruit Loops in the morning, like many things that I don't feed them at home, or like fish sticks that would have no fish in them. It's basically just junk food. And I understand that, because daycares, especially if it's a big daycare, big center, they want kids to eat. They cannot risk kids not eating, right? So they will have in their menu a lot of the things that they know kids eat, because the last thing they need is a hungry child with a low blood sugar who is, being crazy all day long. They need a way to sort of manage children. And they know that when a child is satiated and not hungry, they they're well behaved. And so this is another thing to look at. Um, Another option that I know parents do, especially parents who are very, very, very anxious, is find, a nanny who would come to their house to care for the baby. This way, you know that the child is in a safe place, in a place that they know, they're familiar. And then, this way the person gets into your house, your cocoon. And then, you step out, you go to work, and then you come back, that, this person, was in your space. If you don't trust that person, then I know parents who have cameras around their house, and they actually can see them in real life, in real time through their phones. Like, I personally never done that, but it is available. I know it is. So this is another option. The downside of that approach is, in my opinion, that the child is growing without, other children around them. And so it's harder for them to learn, about sharing and collaboration, and which, again, I don't think that it's wrong or bad. I believe that all kids eventually, get and do acquire these milestones. It's really a matter of time. So you do the best with what you can, right? And so that is another option. And then the other option would be to find a home daycare. In a home daycare, there would usually be a woman who has a lot of experience with childcare, or someone who just wants to operate a small home business. In that kind of daycare, at least in Toronto, Canada, where I'm from, it will be allowed to open for anyone. Right, so you don't have to be licensed. You don't have to, but you cannot have more than 5 kids. So I know that this is sort of like scary for many women, for many parents, especially first-time parents, because what do you mean you don't need any licensing? You can just be anybody and open a daycare. And the truth is that yes, and many parents do trust these women. A lot of them are people who through your community, and your mom knows, or your mother-in-law knows. It's sort of like through someone who you trust. So this is another option for you. But at the end of the day, the really bigger picture is that the reality is that we live in a world that has people in it. So, and most people are good-hearted people. Most people are people who want to do good things and who want to just be helpful. And I know that there are a lot of scary things out there. There are not a lot of pedophiles or molesters or people with really bad and nasty and harmful intentions, and it's just a reality. It's just a reality, and I would recommend to stay away from it as much as you can. I don't see it as closing my eyes and living in a bubble, because, when there is something really, really scary and really, really serious, somehow we find out about it. Otherwise, we just choose to keep our eyes and, what we expose ourselves and our brains and our kids to, we want to be in control of that. So one way I learn and I, educate myself and keep sort of informed about, what's happening in the world is, there are many, many podcasts that broadcast today's news. So this is something that you can definitely explore. There are many, websites, many apps that can send you notifications, and a lot of them would be, good quality ones. Good quality in terms of the content that they expose you to. And yeah, that's something that I recommend to do. We need to learn to trust. We need to learn how to separate from our children, because really at the end of the day, it's what's better for them. So I hope this has been helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you have anything else to add on top of that, I would love to know your perspective or maybe your tips, your take on, trusting our children with other people. And you can always find the show notes to all the episodes over at my website, healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. This is going to be episode 47. So it's going to be healthbeginswithmom.com EP-47. And you can also, you're also very welcome to join my Facebook group, which is Busy Moms Get Healthy, and where we continue the conversation, and also is the place where you can ask me any question. I would love to support you with your motherhood journey, with your, just self-care journey. And also I want you to raise kids that we need more of in the world. So until next time, much love. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.